Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. For decades, Wanda and Pietro Maximoff were mutants. Not just any mutants, the children of Magneto. That twist connected them to the X-Men's biggest villain and made their entire backstory one long family tragedy. It was a legacy soaked in drama, power, and bad decisions. Then Marvel dropped a bomb. In 2014, everything changed. In Axis and Uncanny Avengers, the twins found out Magneto wasn't their father. In fact, they weren't even mutants. They were creations of the High Evolutionary, genetically altered, not born different. And just like that, their mutant identity vanished. No more Xavier's school, no more mutant drama, no more Magneto. This rewrite was loud, risky, and totally intentional. Marvel was realigning its comics with the MCU, where the word mutant was off limits. So the comics cleaned house, making Wanda and Pietro enhanced, just like in Age of Ultron. And say what you want about the motive, the result was a seismic shift. This retcon wiped decades of backstory, shifted the twins into the Avengers spotlight, and forced writers to reframe who they were. Not as victims of mutant politics, but as weapons of pure chaos. It gave Wanda room to evolve into something bigger, stranger, and more unbound by the mutant label. Stories like the trial of Magneto and Darkhold wouldn't have hit the same if she was still tied to Xavier's world. It also opened the door for new takes, some tragic, some cosmic, but all focused on one thing: unshackling Wanda from everything she used to be. Whether fans loved it or not, Marvel made sure this retcon mattered. Green Goblin. The clone saga was already chaos on paper. Spider-Man fighting clones of himself. Gwen Stacy returning from the dead. A mysterious figure named Ben Reilly claiming he might be the real Peter Parker. The whole thing ran for 2 years and nearly collapsed under its own weight. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Norman Osborn was behind it all. For years, the Green Goblin was considered dead, impaled by his own glider in Amazing Spider-Man number 122. End of story. But in 1996, Marvel brought him back with a vengeance. In Spider-Man number 75, they revealed that Norman had secretly survived, pulled the strings on the entire clone saga, and manipulated Peter's life from the shadows. This retcon rewired the core of Spidey's modern mythology. Norman was suddenly a mastermind, a long game player, the guy behind years of emotional breakdowns, identity crises, and clone-related meltdowns. Editorially, this was Marvel cleaning house. The Clone Saga had spiraled so far out of control that they needed a big finish, someone to tie it all together. Norman fit that role perfectly. He gave the story a face, a legacy villain who could carry the consequences and still haunt Peter for years. And it worked. The Goblin's return reignited a classic rivalry, put Osborn back at the top of Marvel's villain list, and gave him new fuel for future arcs. From Dark Reign to Thunderbolts to his twisted role in Sin's Past. It may have started as a last-ditch fix, but this retcon elevated Norman from graveyard ghost to long-term puppet master. Iron Man. Tony Stark spent decades wrestling with legacy issues, weapons dealing, daddy problems, building suits to outrun his past. But in 2013's Iron Man Volume 5, Marvel handed him something new. He wasn't even a Stark. In the secret origin of Tony Stark, it's revealed that Howard and Maria Stark adopted him. His real parents, Amanda Armstrong, a rock star turned S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and Jude, a double agent who sold secrets to Hydra. Jude tried to kill baby Tony. Amanda put him in hiding. And just like that, the billionaire genius who thought he'd inherited his demons found out they weren't his to begin with. This retcon changed why he fights. Suddenly, he wasn't a Stark heir haunted by legacy. He was a wildcard raised by strangers, chasing a future that didn't belong to his bloodline. And for Marvel, it opened the door to something deeper, a search for identity. Who are you when everything you believed about your past turns out to be fabricated? It also gave Marvel a new excuse to explore S.H.I.E.L.D. history, spy politics, and secret wars through a character who previously stayed in his tech lane. Tony's adoption let writers reshape his roots without rebooting the entire universe. The move wasn't universally praised. Some fans called it pointless. But for a character who's always questioned his purpose, it added another layer of unease beneath the armor. No longer a legacy case, just a guy caught in someone else's Cold War. Nick Fury. He used to be the guy who knew everything, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s top agent, always 3 steps ahead, always holding the final trump card. Then, in 2014's Original Sin, Marvel took that chessboard and launched it into orbit, literally. The story kicks off with Uatu the Watcher found dead on the moon, his eyes ripped out. One by one, secrets start leaking across the Marvel universe. Hulk learns Tony tampered with the Gamma Bomb. Thor discovers a sister. And slowly, the investigation circles back to Fury, who's been keeping cosmic tabs on everything for decades without telling anyone. Fury, it turns out, has been Earth's man on the wall, silently assassinating alien threats before they could reach the planet. Not S.H.I.E.L.D., not the Avengers, just Fury and a massive secret armory hidden in space. And when the truth explodes, the punishment is biblical. The Watchers strip him of everything and chain him to the moon, cursing him to watch reality unfold forever. No more guns, no more orders, no more Earth. He becomes the Unseen, a one-eyed cosmic ghost doomed to witness every mistake, war, and multiverse-level disaster without saying a word. Editorially, this was Marvel clearing the board. The original Fury, the cigar-chomping Cold War relic, had run its course. And with the MCU in full swing, Sam Jackson's version was front and center. This shift made room for his adopted son, Nick Fury Jr., to take over on Earth while giving the original a strange, haunting send-off. Moira McTagert. For most of Marvel history, Moira was just a supporting character. Brilliant geneticist, human ally to the X-Men. Occasionally caught in the crossfire, sometimes romantically linked to Xavier, but never the one holding the detonator. Then came 2019. Jonathan Hickman launched House of X and Powers of X, and with it, a retcon so massive it turned Moira into one of the most important figures in mutant kind's history. She wasn't human. She was a mutant, one with a power so specific and insane it made every prior story look like a simulation. Her gift? Reincarnation. Every time she dies, her life resets. Same world, same birth, but with full knowledge of her past lives. She's lived through 10 timelines, seen the X-Men rise and fall, watched mutants lose to machines, humans, and each other, and decided she's done watching it happen. This change reframed everything. She was now the architect behind the X-Men's new plan, the island nation of Krakoa, mutant resurrection protocols, even secret alliances with former enemies. And the wild part? Every life she lived gave her another shot at changing the outcome. One life she sided with Xavier, one with Magneto, one with Apocalypse, one where she tried to cure mutants entirely. Nothing worked until now. Hickman's twist rebooted the entire mutant narrative. The timeline readers thought they knew was now revealed to be one of many. And the current X-Men status quo? It's built on fear of what comes next. Machines, betrayal, war, again, Deadpool. Deadpool was always a walking glitch. Fourth wall breaks, chaos, and blood-stained punchlines. But his original origin was surprisingly separate from the big names. Early issues painted Wade Wilson as a Canadian mercenary, subjected to experiments that gave him insane healing and an even worse personality. No direct ties to Wolverine, no adamantium program, just violence and sarcasm. Then came the merge. By the 2000s, Marvel began reshaping Deadpool's backstory to connect him with the Weapon X program, the same shadowy government project that created Wolverine, Sabretooth, and others. Suddenly, Wade was a failed offshoot, an experiment gone off-script. Weapon X had tried to copy Logan's healing factor, and Deadpool was the result. This retcon slammed Wade into the heart of mutant history. It gave him links to Wolverine, personal grudges with Sabretooth, and even crossover moments with characters like Garrison Kane and Maverick. Writers started dropping Deadpool into Weapon X flashbacks, team-ups, and missions that felt like they'd always been there. And honestly, it worked. Deadpool sales exploded. His ties to the X-Men gave fans more reason to see him as part of that world, even if he constantly blew it up. And by the time the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie landed, Wade's Weapon X credentials were officially canon in the mainstream. The downside was continuity got messy. Deadpool's past became a tangle of half-true memories, shifting timelines, and deliberately vague documents. Writers leaned into the confusion, but even they admitted the puzzle had no clean edge. Still, this retcon stuck for one reason. It made Deadpool relevant to Marvel's most important covert storyline, from side character to key variable, all thanks to one shady lab, one healing factor, and one very talkative patient, Jane Foster. She spent decades in the background, love interest, nurse, occasionally kidnapped, occasionally forgotten. Then, in 2014, Marvel handed her the hammer and changed everything. In Thor #1 by Jason Aaron and Russell Dauterman, the hammer Mjolnir lay abandoned on the moon after Thor Odinson lost his worthiness. Nobody could lift it, until Jane did. No lightning crash, no secret prophecy, just Jane stepping forward and lifting the thing like she'd been waiting her entire life. The twist? Jane had cancer. Stage 4. Every time she transformed into Thor, the godly energy purged her body of chemo, resetting her treatment. She was dying and she knew it, and she still answered every call. This version of Thor was sharp, determined, and brutal in battle. She faced frost giants, dark elves, the Phoenix Force, and Odin's disapproval, all while managing hospital visits between fights. Her run lasted for years and became one of the most awarded Marvel arcs of the decade. Writers gave her purpose, readers gave her respect, critics gave it 5 stars. Aaron revealed that Mjolnir had sensed Jane's selflessness during the original Fear Itself event. The hammer had watched her, judged her. When Thor stumbled, it didn't hesitate. The retcon reframed Jane's past. She'd always stood by gods, even when she had no powers of her own. Now she had all of them, and every time she raised that hammer, she knew it brought her closer to the end. Eventually she fell, and when she did, it took Odin himself to bring her back. Marvel gave her a full circle exit, then handed her a new role, Valkyrie, because her story wasn't done. Loki. Loki used to be predictable. Lie, stab, smile, escape. Classic villain playbook with a magic staff. Then Marvel tore that playbook in half and let him rewrite it. During Journey into Mystery and Loki, Agent of Asgard, the old Loki dies permanently. No trick, no fake out, he's gone. In his place, a younger version steps in. This new Loki isn't out to conquer Asgard. He's out to rewrite what being Loki even means. And that's exactly what he does. The retcon starts subtly. Young Loki is sly and clever, but also painfully aware of his past. Everyone expects him to betray them. Every victory comes with side eyes and suspicion. So instead of denying it, he embraces it, then reshapes it. In Agent of Asgard, he literally becomes the god of stories. Not myths, not mischief, stories. He travels through Marvel history, pulls off meta heists, and even breaks the fourth wall without turning into parody. His power grows beyond illusions and daggers. He starts wielding narrative control, bending expectations, rewriting outcomes. This new version absorbs him. He carries the weight of every betrayal, every war, every failure, and chooses to keep going anyway. Sometimes selfish, sometimes heroic, always unpredictable. Writers use the retcon to dig deep into redemption, identity, and change. Loki isn't pretending to be better. He's trying to rewrite who he is before someone else decides for him. And for a character built on trickery, that choice hit harder than any spell. The MCU would eventually follow the same arc: death, rebirth, reinvention. But the comics did it first and gave Loki a title that no one else in the Marvel Universe could claim: the Sentry. In 2000, Marvel introduced a superhero no one remembered, and that was the entire point. His name was the Sentry. Cape, glowing eyes, power level off the charts. The twist? He'd supposedly been around since the Golden Age, the real first superhero, the one who inspired the rest. The comics said he'd fought side by side with the Hulk, teamed up with the Fantastic Four, even mentored Spider-Man. He had a villain called the Void, a shadow of himself so powerful and terrifying that the world decided to forget they ever existed. Literally, every hero, every citizen, even the readers were part of the retcon. The in-universe explanation, a massive psychic event, made everyone forget the Sentry to prevent the Void from returning. The real-world explanation? Marvel went full performance art. They even published fake letters from veteran readers who swore they remembered him from the 60s. This was a retroactive insertion, an entire career forced into Marvel's past, stitched into classic covers, and written into events that already happened. It was ambitious, it was weird, and it worked. For a while, the Sentry stuck around. He joined the Avengers. He fought in Siege, tore Ares in half, battled World War Hulk, and constantly hovered between Savior and Time Bomb. Every story reminded readers that his power came with a cost, that the Void was never far behind. Fans were split. Some loved the psychological weight, others saw him as an overpowered wildcard. But the retcon itself? That was the headline. Marvel rewrote history and dared you to believe it had always been there. Peter Parker's parents. Parker grew up with one truth: his parents were gone. Plane crash, end of story. He was raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben, and whatever Richard and Mary Parker were involved in, it was buried in the past. That changed in Amazing Spider-Man Annual Number 5, when Marvel dropped one of its earliest major retcons. Turns out Peter's parents weren't just travelers or scientists, they were SHIELD agents, deep cover operatives working during the Cold War, with one mission: infiltrate the Red Skull's organization and report back. The operation got exposed, their plane sabotaged, and the story that reached Queens was a sanitized version of a spy disaster. This retcon did two things instantly. First, it added layers to Peter's origin, not just tragedy, but mystery. Second, it tied Spider-Man into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s orbit long before he ever teamed up with the Avengers. Suddenly, his family had connections to Nick Fury, covert missions, and classified files. Writers expanded the idea in later years. Peter uncovered microfilm reels, hidden journals, and even robotic duplicates of his parents sent to mess with his mind. Courtesy of the Chameleon, that one didn't end well. Over time, the spy connection floated in and out of relevance. It didn't define Peter like it did someone like Natasha Romanoff, but it always sat there, waiting to be pulled back into play whenever a story needed a twist or a betrayal with personal stakes. And that's it. So, which of these twists blew your mind, and which do you think secretly broke the universe? Drop your picks below and let's see who really reads between the panels.